All right, American Republic, let's get started. The War as America Watched, page 397. You were supposed to read this yesterday. Doing videos makes me so nervous. It really does. Anyway, here's what I want you to understand about World War One. As you read that, I want you to understand it. But here's the main thing you need to know about World War One. George Washington, when he was president, as he left office, he gave his farewell address. One of the things George Washington encouraged American leaders to do, is not entangle in alliances. In other words, this whole idea that, okay, if one of you is out in the hallway, if we were back at school, and you've got 3 or 4 buddies that you've made alliances with, pacts with, and you say, hey, if somebody ever bullies me, attacks me, then y'all are going to jump in and help me, right? And I'll do the same for you. Okay? That's an entangling alliance. And here's what happened is all of these countries had said, well, we will side with you. Some of them were siding against Germany. Some of them were siding together because they wanted a big empire. And they all agreed that, hey, if you go to war with so-and-so, we'll go to war with them too. That's what caused World War One. There was an assassination. Francis Ferdinand, the Archduke of Austria, he was going to be the king of Austria. He was assassinated, and Russia came to the aid of Serbia. Now, Austria had annexed the province of Bosnia in 1908, and anti-Austrian groups sprang up to fight for Bosnia's independence, and one of those groups was based in Serbia, and they sponsored the guy that killed the Archduke Francis Ferdinand. And so Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for not stopping the group. That's how all of this, one assassination, and here we go. So anyway, Russia came to the aid of Serbia, and Russia and Austria-Hungary were soon at war. And then August 1st, 1914, Germany declared war on Russia, and then France joined Russia, Germany, and Austria against Germany and Austria. You see how these alliances cause problems. You had the Central Powers, which were Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and Turkey, and the Allied powers, the big dogs, Britain, France, Russia, Italy, and then later on the United States. Now, there were several things I just want to mention that supplement what you read yesterday. First of all, this was called the Great War for years. It wasn't called World War One. Why would you not call it World War One? Well, duh, there was no World War Two. So it was called the Great War, or the war to end all wars. And after World War II, it became known as World War One. So just a little thing to think about there. Also, one of the cool things that happened Christmas Day in 1914, opposing soldiers got out of their trenches. They met in what was called No Man's Land. They had a day of Christmas celebration. They celebrated Christmas together, and then after that they went back to fighting. It's pretty cool stuff. You'll hear about that around Christmas time a lot. Also, shell shock. Here's the thing about, and you'll see a picture on page 398 of trenches. World War One was fought mostly in trenches. And you saw about the battle where Britain was backed up, and or was that in this section? Britain gets backed up, and anyway, they dig trenches, and it was a mess for Britain and for France for a time. And there were battles that you would just fight over a few square inches of land, but they dug trenches, and inside these trenches, it was nasty. It was terrible. You would be down there, and you hear this. You don't know where the is going to be. And you're scared to death. And one of the terms that came out of World War I was shell shock. There were physical afflictions, but there was also psychological trauma. If you don't know where these shells are going to explode, or you've been shot at a bunch, it causes what they called shell shock. Now we call it post-traumatic stress disorder. But shell shock was the term used at this point. There were innovations that happened during the war. You read about some of those. Tanks. tanks were invented. Both sides had tanks. Germans, I believe, made a form, and Britain made a form. But you'll see tanks pictured on 398. This was new. The big thing about the tank, if you've got a trench, you got a wide enough span on that tank, you can plow right over it, which made a difference. It'll roll right over barbed wire and barricades and all of those things. Poisonous gas was used. In fact, Hitler fought in World War I. He saw the effects of poisonous gas, and he thought, hey, if I'm ever in charge, which he would be for World War II, we won't use poisonous gas. The reason for that, he realized that if we can develop a poisonous gas, they can too, and they can use it on our people. But it was terrible. Many people got sick. Many people died breathing in these noxious mustard gases and all of these things. Terrible, terrible stuff. And you can imagine being down in a trench and you're having to wear a gas mask over your face, kind of like we have to wear masks now when we go out. But no. And this chlorine gas or this mustard gas would just eat the inside of your lungs. Also, just to show you about how the war was, the slaughter of World War I battlefields was staggering. July of 1916, first day of fighting at the Somme River. This is where the Brits were backed up. 60,000 British soldiers were killed or wounded. 60,000. Did you hear the time period on that? 1 day. Imagine the bloodiness of that. After it was all over, in Belgium, British sacrificed 150,000 soldiers in 6 days. They advanced their line just a few miles. That's the cost of gaining a few miles of territory, 150,000 soldiers. The dead from the war numbered twice as many as the combined dead of all the major wars fought from 1790 to 1913. So it was a very bloody battle. Another thing that happened, airplanes. And you saw about those. Airplanes were big in this war. They started out much like hot air balloons were in the Civil War as reconnaissance or monitoring the movement of troops, but then they figured out, hey, we can mount a machine gun on here. We can put bombs in here and we can drop them on people. And you have people, if you shot down 5 airplanes or more, they were called aces. Big heroes out of the airplane cockpits. And it was a different war than any other war that had been fought. Before, you've lined up on a battlefield, you've faced each other, and now you're fighting in trenches, you have airplanes zooming overhead, and in World War II, that's even going to be bigger, the airplanes and the use of those, and we know the rest is history. But World War I is the first war that really sees that. They see airplanes in use. All right, here's what I want you to do. I've tried to make it short today. Page 399, section quiz, page 399. Please complete that and turn that in, and tomorrow we will discuss the next portion of the book. And my goodness, time is flying by. We've got to finish a lot of material, so keep up. A couple of you are missing assignments. Don't just think that you can't turn them in and it won't count against you. I've tried not to put a 0 in the grade book yet for a couple of you. Make sure you've got everything turned in. I sent a couple of private notes yesterday to folks. Make sure you get it done, because I don't want to give you a 0. I want you to do well, and you can do well. Your number one job right now, in the midst of all that's going on in the world, is to be a good Christian, if you are a Christian, to also be a good student. And you all are good students. You can all be good students. Get your work done. Love y'all. Praying for you. Miss you. Bye.